Why you eat more when you're stressed. The surprising science. After a long, exhausting day, the familiar sound of a crinkling chip bag can be both comforting and alarming. It's a ritual many know too well, arriving home, shedding the weight of the day, and seeking solace in a snack. Stress eating often becomes a refuge, a way to momentarily escape the pressures of life. The brain in these moments reacts to stress by releasing cortisol, a hormone that triggers cravings for high-calorie, sugary, and fatty foods. This is not merely a matter of willpower, it's a primal response. When under stress, the brain seeks out quick sources of energy, often leading individuals to indulge in snacks like chips, which provide an immediate sense of pleasure. The crunch of a chip can momentarily drown out the noise of anxiety, offering a brief respite from feelings of overwhelm. Yet, this coping mechanism can spiral into a cycle of guilt and further stress, creating a paradox where the very act meant to soothe ends up exacerbating the problem. Understanding this cycle is crucial. Recognizing that the desire to snack stems from an emotional response can help individuals regain control over their eating habits. To break free from this pattern, mindfulness can be a powerful tool. Taking a moment to pause and assess one's feelings before reaching for a snack can foster awareness of true hunger versus emotional cravings. Additionally, finding healthier alternatives, such as air-popped popcorn or sliced vegetables, can satisfy that need for crunch without the guilt. Establishing a routine that includes stress relief practices like exercise or meditation can also redirect the focus away from food. By understanding the science behind stress eating and employing strategies to manage it, individuals can reclaim their relationship with food, transforming it from a source of comfort into a means of nourishment. In the heart of the human brain lies a complex network of interactions that orchestrate our response to stress, a phenomenon that has intrigued scientists and psychologists alike. At the center of this intricate dance is the hypothalamic-pituitary-adrenal (HPA) axis, a trio of glands that work in concert to manage how we respond to challenges and threats. When faced with a stressful situation, whether it be a looming deadline, an argument with a loved one, or the uncertainty of the future, the body springs into action, activating this axis as if it were an emergency alarm. The process begins in the hypothalamus, a small but mighty part of the brain that acts as a command center. When it perceives stress, it releases corticotropin-releasing hormone, CRH, signaling the pituitary gland to produce adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH. This hormone then travels through the bloodstream to the adrenal glands, situated atop the kidneys, prompting them to release cortisol, often referred to as the stress hormone. This cascade of hormonal activity is a finely tuned response designed to prepare the body for what is often termed the fight-or-flight reaction. Cortisol floods the system, increasing alertness and heightening awareness. It sharpens the senses, allowing individuals to react swiftly to potential dangers. In this state, the body prioritizes immediate survival over other functions. Heart rate quickens, blood pressure rises, and energy is mobilized from storage sites to fuel the body's response. It's a powerful mechanism, one that has evolved over millennia to ensure that humans can confront threats head-on, whether they be physical dangers or modern-day stressors. However, the impact of cortisol extends beyond mere physical readiness. It also influences our cravings, particularly for high-fat, high-sugar foods. Under stress, the brain shifts into a survival mindset, interpreting the need for quick energy sources as paramount. When cortisol levels rise, they trigger a complex interplay of neurochemicals that enhance the desire for foods rich in fats and sugars. The brain, in its wisdom, recognizes these foods as quick fuel, capable of providing immediate energy to face the stressor at hand. This craving is not just a passing whim. It's a primal instinct rooted in our evolutionary past. In times of stress, our ancestors needed energy to escape predators or confront challenges. As a result, the brain developed a preference for calorie-dense foods, which could provide the necessary strength to endure and survive. Today, even in the absence of physical threats, the same mechanisms activate, leading individuals to seek out comfort foods that offer a quick hit of energy and satisfaction. Yet, this behavior can create a vicious cycle. The immediate gratification from indulging in high-fat, high-sugar foods provides a temporary reprieve from stress, but often leads to feelings of guilt or lethargy afterward. This can exacerbate stress levels, prompting further cravings and a reliance on unhealthy food choices as a coping mechanism. Over time, this cycle can contribute to various health issues, including obesity, diabetes, and anxiety disorders, creating a complex relationship between stress, diet, and overall well-being. Understanding the impact of stress on the brain and body reveals the intricate connections that shape our behaviors and choices. The activation of the HPA axis and the subsequent release of cortisol are not just biological responses. They are part of a broader narrative about survival, adaptation, and the challenges of modern life. As we navigate the complexities of our daily existence, recognizing these patterns allows us to make more informed choices, seeking healthier outlets for stress, and breaking the cycle of craving that can ensnare us. In this journey, awareness becomes a powerful tool, enabling us to reclaim control over our responses to stress and our relationship with food, ultimately fostering a healthier mind and body. In the midst of a bustling city, where the cacophony of life never seemed to cease, there lived a woman named Clara. By day, she was a diligent marketing executive, navigating the relentless demands of her job with a practiced smile. But as evening descended, so did a heavy veil of exhaustion that wrapped around her like a shroud. The office was a whirlwind of deadlines and meetings, but it was the emotional toll that left her feeling drained, as if every ounce of energy had been siphoned away. Clara often found herself returning home to a quiet apartment that echoed with her solitude. The silence was deafening, amplifying the weight of her thoughts. It was during these moments when the world outside seemed so vibrant and alive that her cravings would begin to stir. They weren't just for food, they were for comfort, for a fleeting escape from the stress that had become her unwelcome companion. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Clara opened her freezer and stared at the half-empty tub of ice cream. It was a familiar sight, the creamy texture and rich flavor promising a momentary reprieve from her emotional fatigue. She scooped out a generous portion, feeling the coldness against her skin, a stark contrast to the warmth of her worries. As the first spoonful melted on her tongue, a wave of relief washed over her. The sweetness enveloped her, a soothing balm for her frayed nerves. In that moment, Clara was not merely eating. She was indulging in a ritual that transcended the physical act of consuming food. Each bite triggered a response deep within her brain, releasing dopamine, the feel-good chemical that danced through her system like a warm embrace. It was a chemical hug, a fleeting moment of joy that temporarily silenced the chaos in her mind. The world outside faded, and for a brief interlude, she felt whole again. Yet, as she savored the ice cream, Clara was unwittingly stepping onto a treadmill of emotional eating. The stress of the day had led to discomfort, which prompted her to seek solace in food, and in return, her brain rewarded her with a rush of happiness. This cycle was not one of weakness or lack of willpower. It was a biological response, a primal instinct that had evolved over millennia. In moments of distress, her body craved the comfort that food provided, and her brain, in turn, reinforced this behavior by flooding her with dopamine. As the tub of ice cream dwindled, Clara felt a bittersweet pang. The temporary high was fading, and the stressors of her life loomed larger than before. Guilt began to creep in, whispering that she should have found a healthier outlet for her emotions. But the truth was, the lure of comfort food was powerful, a siren call that was hard to resist. She had learned to associate food with solace, a connection that was deeply rooted in her biology. The cycle continued. The next day would bring new challenges, and Clara would find herself once again reaching for the familiar comfort of pizza, the cheesy layers offering a different kind of warmth. Each slice was a reminder of happier times, of gatherings with friends and laughter that felt so distant now. With every bite, her brain would respond, releasing dopamine and momentarily lifting the weight of her worries. Clara understood, on some level, that this wasn't a sustainable solution. Yet, the brain's response was a powerful force, compelling her to seek comfort in the very things that offered a brief escape. She would often reflect on her choices, caught in the tug-of-war between her emotional needs and the desire for healthier habits. But in those moments of solitude, when the world felt too heavy to bear, the allure of comfort food was an unyielding refuge, a reminder that even in her darkest hours, there was sweetness to be found. Chronic stress is an insidious force, creeping into the corners of our lives and entwining itself with our daily routines, often without us even realizing it. In the beginning, stress might manifest as an occasional urge to indulge in a favorite snack after a long day, a comforting ritual that feels almost instinctual. This phenomenon, commonly referred to as stress eating, is a normal response to life's pressures. A piece of chocolate cake or a bag of chips can provide temporary solace, a brief escape from the relentless demands of work, family, or personal challenges. However, as stress becomes a constant companion, the relationship with food can shift dramatically, morphing from a momentary indulgence into a habitual escape. When stress becomes chronic, the body enters a state of heightened alertness. Cortisol, the stress hormone, surges through the bloodstream, triggering a cascade of physiological changes. One of the most profound impacts of this prolonged stress is on our hunger hormones, ghrelin and leptin. Ghrelin, often dubbed the hunger hormone, signals the brain to increase appetite, while leptin, known as the satiety hormone, tells us when we've had enough to eat. Under normal circumstances, these hormones work in tandem, maintaining a delicate balance that regulates our hunger and fullness. However, chronic stress disrupts this balance, leading to an overproduction of ghrelin and a decrease in leptin sensitivity. As the stress continues, the body becomes caught in a vicious cycle. Elevated ghrelin levels mean that the signal to eat becomes stronger, while the diminished effectiveness of leptin means that the feeling of fullness becomes harder to attain. This hormonal imbalance can lead to a relentless cycle of overeating, particularly of unhealthy foods that are high in sugar and fat. The brain, seeking comfort in the face of stress, begins to crave these quick sources of energy. Junk food, with its immediate gratification, becomes a go-to solution for managing the emotional turmoil that chronic stress brings. What started as an occasional treat to cope with stress can quickly spiral into a pattern of habitual overeating. The body, now accustomed to this cycle, begins to forget what true hunger feels like. The once clear signals of satiety become muddled, leading to a state where one can eat a large meal and still feel the compulsion to seek more. This disconnection from the body's natural cues not only fuels the desire for more food, but also fosters a sense of guilt and frustration. The individual may find themselves trapped in a cycle of eating to cope with stress, feeling temporarily relieved, but ultimately unsatisfied, leading to more stress and more eating. Over time, this relationship with food can have significant repercussions on physical health. Weight gain, increased risk of chronic diseases, and a negative impact on mental well-being can all stem from this cycle of chronic stress and unhealthy eating habits. The body, constantly in a state of fight or flight, struggles to maintain equilibrium, and the toll it takes can be profound. The fleeting comfort of junk food becomes a double-edged sword. While it provides momentary relief, it ultimately exacerbates the very stress it was meant to alleviate. Breaking free from this cycle requires awareness and intention. Recognizing the signs of chronic stress and its impact on eating habits is the first step toward reclaiming control. Mindful eating practices, stress management techniques, and healthier coping mechanisms can help restore balance. By learning to listen to the body's true hunger signals and addressing the root causes of stress, individuals can begin to heal their relationship with food. The journey may be challenging, but it is possible to shift from a pattern of habitual overeating to a more balanced approach that honors both the body and the mind. In this way, the cycle of stress and unhealthy eating can be transformed into a path of awareness and nourishment. In the quiet moments between the chaos of life, a certain awareness began to unfold within me. It was as if I had finally pulled back the curtain on a long-standing performance, revealing the intricate dance between my mind and my biology. I had always been aware of the triggers that sent me spiraling into a cycle of stress and unhealthy coping mechanisms, but it wasn't until I took a step back that I truly recognized them for what they were. The pressure of deadlines at work loomed like dark clouds overhead, and the tension in my relationship felt like an ever-tightening noose. Each day, I navigated these pressures, often finding solace in food, my go-to comfort during times of overwhelm. But there came a moment when I realized that this cycle was not sustainable. I began to question my habits and the reasons behind them. I recognized that every time stress hit, I would seek refuge in the kitchen, mindlessly reaching for snacks as if they could fill the void created by anxiety. It was a temporary fix, a fleeting moment of relief that left me feeling heavier, both physically and emotionally. I knew I had to break free from this cycle to reclaim my autonomy over my mind and body. The first step was acknowledging my triggers. I started to keep a journal, documenting not just my feelings, but also the moments when I felt the urge to eat out of stress. I noted the deadlines that loomed, the arguments that simmered beneath the surface, and the everyday pressures that seemed to accumulate like dust in the corners of my mind. With each entry, I grew more aware of the patterns that emerged. I could see how stress would build, how it would manifest in my body, and how my mind would respond with cravings that had little to do with genuine hunger. From this recognition blossomed the desire to develop healthier stress management tools. I began to explore alternatives that didn't involve food. A 10-minute walk became my sanctuary, a brief escape where I could breathe in the fresh air and let my thoughts wander. The rhythm of my footsteps matched the cadence of my racing mind, grounding me in the present moment. I noticed how the simple act of moving my body could alleviate the weight of anxiety, if only for a little while. Mindful breathing also became an essential practice in my daily routine. I would sit quietly, closing my eyes and focusing solely on my breath. In those moments, I learned to observe my thoughts without judgment, allowing them to float by like clouds in the sky. I discovered that I could create a space between my feelings and my reactions, a pause that allowed me to respond to stress with clarity rather than impulsivity. Yet, the most profound change came when I faced the familiar pang of hunger. It was a moment that often sent me racing to the pantry, but now I paused. I would take a deep breath, feeling the air fill my lungs, and ask myself, am I truly hungry or just overwhelmed? This question became my anchor, a gentle reminder to check in with myself before reaching for food. Sometimes the answer was a resounding overwhelmed, and in those moments, I would choose to walk, breathe, or write instead. This reflective pause transformed my relationship with food. I began to see it not as a remedy for my emotions, but as nourishment for my body. I learned to savor each bite, to appreciate the flavors and textures, rather than consuming in a haze of stress. With time, I found that the more I engaged in these alternative practices, the less I relied on food to soothe my soul. Breaking the cycle between mind and biology became a journey of self-discovery. I learned that my triggers were not insurmountable obstacles, but invitations to explore healthier coping mechanisms. In recognizing my feelings and developing tools to manage stress, I found a sense of empowerment that had eluded me for so long. I was no longer a prisoner of my cravings. I was the architect of my own well-being. As she sat at the kitchen table, the remnants of a late-night binge lay scattered before her. An empty bag of chips, a crumpled candy wrapper, and a half-finished pint of ice cream. The remnants were a testament to another evening lost in the fog of stress eating, a cycle that had become all too familiar. The clock ticked softly in the background, marking the hours she had spent trying to drown out the noise in her head with the crunch of salty snacks and the sweetness of sugar. Yet, as she stared at the evidence of her indulgence, a flicker of understanding began to emerge. It was a moment of clarity that had been brewing beneath the surface for some time. She recalled the whirlwind of her day, a demanding job, a tense conversation with a friend, and the relentless pressure to meet expectations that felt insurmountable. In those moments of stress, Food had become her solace, a temporary escape from the chaos that swirled around her. But as she reflected on her choices, she started to realize that this behavior was not a sign of weakness, but rather a response from her brain, instinctively trying to protect her from overwhelming emotions. The realization was both liberating and daunting. She had always viewed her late-night snacking as a personal failing, a lack of discipline that left her feeling guilty and ashamed. But now, she saw it through a different lens. Her brain was wired to seek comfort, to find pleasure in something tangible when the intangible pressures of life became too much to bear. It was a survival mechanism, not a character flaw. With this newfound understanding, she felt a flicker of empowerment igniting within her. Determined to regain control, she began to explore small, mindful shifts in her daily routine. Instead of reaching for the chips when stress struck, she opted for a glass of water, allowing herself a moment to breathe and assess her feelings. She discovered that taking a pause, even for a few seconds, helped her recognize the difference between hunger and emotional need. It was a powerful realization. She didn't have to succumb to the urge. She could choose how to respond. She also started to incorporate more nourishing foods into her meals, not as a punishment, but as a way to honor her body. Colorful fruits and vegetables filled her plate, and she found joy in preparing meals that were both satisfying and wholesome. Cooking became a form of meditation, a way to connect with herself and the ingredients she was using. Each chop of the knife, each sizzle in the pan, was a step toward reclaiming her relationship with food. As the weeks turned into months, the changes she made began to ripple through other areas of her life. She started practicing mindfulness, not just at the dinner table, but throughout her day. Whether it was a few moments of deep breathing before a meeting or a short walk outside during her lunch break, she learned to acknowledge and process her stress without turning to food for comfort. With each mindful choice, she felt a growing sense of reassurance and confidence. The late-night binges became less frequent, replaced by moments of clarity where she could sit with her emotions instead of running from them. She learned to embrace the discomfort, understanding that it was a part of being human. In this journey, she discovered that food was not the enemy. It was a tool, a source of nourishment that could complement her life rather than dictate it. As she continued to build a healthier relationship with both food and stress, she felt more in control, more attuned to her body and its needs. The kitchen table, once a site of guilt and shame, transformed into a place of empowerment, a reminder of her journey, her growth, and the understanding that she was not defined by her past choices. She had learned to navigate the complexities of her emotions with grace, and in doing so, she had found a path toward balance and fulfillment. As we wrap up our discussion on self-awareness and stress eating, I want to take a moment to reflect on the profound insights we've shared today. Understanding ourselves is a journey, one that allows us to recognize the triggers that lead us to seek comfort in food during stressful times. It's essential to acknowledge these patterns, as doing so empowers us to make healthier choices. I encourage each of you to take these insights and share them with friends or family who might be navigating similar challenges. Together, we can foster a supportive community. Remember, for ongoing guidance, resources like Smart Health Tips can offer valuable brain-based strategies that resonate with our experiences. As we move forward, let's prioritize our mental well-being alongside our eating habits. Take a moment each day to check in with yourself, and remember that nurturing your mind is just as important as nourishing your body. If you found this information helpful, don't forget to like, share with your friends and family, and subscribe to Smart Health Tips for more valuable health insights. Have any questions or experiences to share? Drop a comment below. We'd love to hear from you. Let's build a healthier future together. See you in the next video.